truth can be stranger than fiction. And if we continue to believe in the fairy tale of leadership from Joseph Robinette Biden, America's prominent standing may soon become just a figment of our very own imagination. With that in mind, we get to our first guest, retired Air Force General and United States Deputy Military Representative to NATO, Blaine Holt. Always good to see you, my friend. 2021 filled with empty promises from Joe Biden. I remind people that this is the same man who said that he was going to defeat coronavirus, still refuses to get to the source of how the virus ended up on our shores in the first place. And again, lest we not forget the $2 trillion of failed nation building that went kaput in just a fortnight on his watch. How do we get through to the American people to say just how bad this is from a national security standpoint?
Well, Joe, it's good to see you, and Happy New Year to you and all the viewers. I think you've nailed it exactly right in your monologue. The theme that we see in the last year is one of bad governance. And it's not just the administration. We find it out of the Congress as well. We have racked up disaster after disaster after disaster in policy. And it all leads to a road called America's weakness from strength. And when we talk about a more peaceful world, a more prosperous world, we don't get those things without a strong and prosperous America here at home. And so as we look at weakness against China, our weakness to uphold our borders and our sovereignty, the inflation that we see that's taking away the power of the middle class by the hour. When we take a look at the greatest military disaster that we've experienced as a nation in Afghanistan, it all racks up to the same thing, that we're not being served by professional politicians as the founders had envisioned.
Absolutely. When you look realistically at the current threats that we're facing on the global stage, people talk about Taiwan in terms of freedom. Obviously, that is crucial to the core tenets of our republic, but it's also from a strategic national security standpoint when you talk about the fact Taiwan effectively has a monopoly over the semiconductor chips that are in your iPad, in your car, in some toasters even, your GPS, you name it. The world as we know it does not function without those chips. And if China seizes Taiwan and the chips that go along with it, we're going to have big trouble here at home and around the globe for our allies.
Yeah, I think we're in for a lot more disruption in the global supply chains, whether it's the chips that you're talking about and a Taiwan incursion. There's so many ripple effects and cascading effects that would come from any action against Taiwan, and one has to appreciate their courage as they stand up. But there's every classification of supply chain. If you look at China's now in possession of hoarding 50% of the world's grains because they're worried about famine. China is eviscerating their real estate markets at the expense of foreign capital. All of these things come back to policies that you can find here that bring these things to a bad conclusion.
Absolutely. Talking about what's happening over there on the border of Ukraine, Russia, amassing those nearly 170,000 troops, again, effectively giving the United States of America ultimatums. Talk to us again about this conversion of this new axis of evil in the East. China and Russia doing joint military exercises, effectively surrounding Japan, the implications for that as it relates to, again, their threats being made to Taiwan, Japan in some ways being that last kind of defense there for the Taiwanese, the people who can get there first. You kind of basically paint this picture for us, because I don't think people actually always take the time to look at the map and realize that China and Russia are basically encircling the globe and our allies at that.
So let's go to the first domino, and it's not sitting in Moscow or Beijing. The first domino sits in Kabul. When we evacuated Afghanistan and ended that war the way we did, we sent a message that we were not going to be standing by our partners and allies as we had committed to. And this now spurs opportunism on the world stage. And so if we take a look at whether it's threats against Taiwan, threats against partners and allies in Asia, or if we look at what Russia's doing with regards to Ukraine on the Polish border with immigration through Belarus. These are all opportunities being exploited. And quite honestly, it doesn't necessarily, Vladimir Putin has lots of options. He doesn't necessarily have to invade Ukraine. He can get the president of the United States on the phone to talk about a crisis that he created once every 10 days and start suing for benefits. And so we're not showing many of the capabilities and the leverage points that we have in foreign policy and in defense policy. And what I would say and what I was urging since Kabul was there needs to be accountability for poor policy making, poor leadership, and poor decision making.
Absolutely. I think even if you look at what's happening in South America, we now have South American countries that are effectively seizing the Taiwanese embassies, turning over the contents of said embassies to the Chinese government. Talk to us again about the real threat there, because again, people have to remember all of these embassies effectively have a lot of communications with countries around the globe, whether you're talking about the United States, whether you're talking about our allies. All of those communications now become compromised. And now you have a Chinese hostile nation sharing information with a Russian nation, working with the Taliban in the Middle East that means to do us harm, working with Hamas and the Ayatollah in Iran. Basically, this unholy union is everywhere around us.
That's right. And what you're seeing is, and what we should be astonished by, is how quickly the level of coercion can be brought to capitals around the world to take these actions on behalf of the Chinese, and what they've been able to do with soft power coercion from South America, Africa, their One Belt, One Road initiative. The one place where I take heart is that things are not so good at home for the Chinese right now, and we see that in every single sector they have, or whether it's their own immigration policy. You know that in 2020 they issued 150 million passports, and in 2021 only 335,000 passports. The Iron Curtain is coming back up, and we should take a sobering look at how we've helped that. But, if you stare at the rearview mirror, you're going to eventually hit something in front of you. And so looking forward, we should really analyze what's going on in these countries and in China, and then start to recraft our policy. We're not welded to the current policies of the last year. We should be making adjustments right now.
Absolutely. Again, Russia used to be a moribund nation. I think they found the keys and some 21st century hardware to go along with it. General Holt, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Happy New Year. God bless. We'll talk to you again soon.